This is the Music Halls of Fame podcast. This week, we honor the year in music for 2006, along with a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame class of 2006. We also look at the case for putting the Gorillaz into next year's class of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, plus our Spotlight Hall of Fame is the Blues Museum Hall of Fame in Memphis, Tennessee. Before we get going with the podcast, like everyone tells you, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you'll know when these podcast episodes drop, which is usually every Thursday. Now, on to this week's episode. The year was 2006. In music, iTunes had its 1 billionth download after starting only a few years earlier. After being on air for 42 years, the weekly edition of the British music show Top of the Pops stopped airing. Spotify was founded, changing music a decade later with its streaming service. Google bought YouTube for $1.65 billion, which somehow strangely feels like a bargain now. Opera great Luciano Pavarotti performed for the final time when he sang at the Winter Olympics in Italy. David Bowie performed for the final time as well when he sang 3 songs at a charity concert in New York City. The Cirque du Soleil Beatles Love Show opened in Las Vegas that year. In 2006 was also the year that artists like Lily Allen, Daughtry, and Taylor Swift debuted. The big pop culture event of 2006, though, was the success of the Disney Channel's High School Musical, which made stars out of its actors, broke television viewing records, and spawned way too many sequels, to be honest. The High School Musical soundtrack was actually the biggest album of the year. Rounding out the top 10 albums were Justin Timberlake, Nelly Furtado, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Carrie Underwood, Pink, Beyoncé, the Beatles with the Cirque du Soleil Love soundtrack, Daughtry, and Taylor Swift. Other albums that were critical darlings that year included those by Amy Winehouse, Muse, My Chemical Romance, and Arctic Monkeys. Daniel Powter's song Bad Day, which was American Idol's loser send-off song, was the biggest selling single in America. Other big singles were Sean Paul's Temperature, Nelly Furtado and Timbaland's Promiscuous, James Blunt's You're Beautiful, Shakira and Wyclef Jean's Hips Don't Lie, Natasha Bedingfield's Unwritten, Gnarls Barkley's Crazy, Chamillionaire and Crazy Bones' Ridin', Justin Timberlake and Timbaland's Sexy Back, and Beyoncé and Slim Thug's Check on It. In country music, the big stories all seem to be about arrests and divorces. Hank Williams Jr. was arrested for assaulting a teenage waitress. Willie Nelson was arrested for drug possession. Lynn Anderson was arrested for drunk driving. Sarah Evans divorced her husband after finding out that he was having an affair with the family's nanny. There was one good piece of news, though. Keith Urban married actress Nicole Kidman. So there you go. Some of the big albums of the year were released by Keith Urban, George Strait, Kelly Pickler, the Dixie Chicks, now known, of course, as the Chicks, Taylor Swift, Alan Jackson, Kenny Chesney, Dierks Bentley, Johnny Cash, and Rascal Flatts. George Strait passed Conway Twitty for most #1 songs on the Billboard Hot Country Singles chart when he got his 41st chart topper. George would end his career with 44 #1 songs on that chart. As far as big country songs for that year, they included Carrie Underwood's Before He Cheats, George Strait's Give It Away, The Wreckers' Leave the Pieces, Rascal Flatts' My Wish, Kenny Chesney's Summertime, Sugarland's Want To, Bon Jovi and Jennifer Nettles' Who Says You Can't Go Home, Dierks Bentley's Every Mile a Memory, Brad Paisley and Dolly Parton's When I Get Where I'm Going, and Josh Turner's Your Man. In hip-hop, the biggest albums were Jay-Z's Kingdom Come, T.I.'s King, The Game's Doctor's Advocate, Nas's Hip Hop Is Dead, Young Jeezy's The Inspiration, Shady Records' Eminem Presents The Re-Up, Ludacris's Release Therapy, Snoop Dogg's The Blue Carpet Treatment, Bow Wow's The Price of Fame, and Busta Rhymes' The Big Bang. The biggest hip-hop singles included Chamillionaire's Ridin', Nelly's Grills, T.I.'s What You Know, Fort Minor's Where'd You Go, LL Cool J and Jennifer Lopez's Control Myself, Eminem's Shake That, Jules Santana's There It Go, Bubba Sparx's Ms. New Booty, Jay-Z's Show Me What You Got, and Young Dro's Shoulder Lean. In dance music, the label Head Candy was bought by Ministry of Sound. Calvin Harris built up his fan base on MySpace and began his career. Remember MySpace? Good times when you only had one friend. The Hi-Fi Music Festival started in 2006. Daft Punk used their famed Pyramid stage for the very first time in concert. The top 10 DJs, according to DJ Mag's Top 100 DJs poll, were Paul Van Dyke, Armin van Buuren, Tiesto, Christopher Lawrence, DJ Dan, Ferry Corsten, Sasha, John Digweed, Above and Beyond, and Deep Dish. Big albums for dance music included Faithless's To All New Arrivals, Basement Jaxx's Crazy Itch Radio, and Scream's self-titled album. Big dance songs for the year included Eric Prydz' Proper Education, Armin van Helden's My, Justice's We Are Your Friends, Ferry Corsten's Fire, Röyksopp's What Else Is There, David Guetta's Love Don't Let Me Go, Cass Fox's Touch Me, Freestyler's Painkiller, Chris Lake's Changes, and Paul Oakenfold and the late great Brittany Murphy's song Faster Kill Pussycat. The top Latin artists of 2006 included Daddy Yankee, Wisin and Yandel, Don Omar, RBD, Maña, Shakira, Juanes, RKM and Ken Y, Mariano Barba, Tito El Bambino, and Aventura. Musicals or revivals of musicals that were popular that year included Chaplin, A Chorus Line, Les Miserables, High Fidelity, Mary Poppins, Threepenny Opera, and Tarzan. Musical films that opened that year included Dreamgirls, Happy Feet, and Tenacious D in the Pick of Destiny. Bands that formed in 2006 included Beirut, the Bingo Players, Bon Iver, Daughtry, the Black Veil Brides, Haim, Noah and the Whale, Vampire Weekend, Lady Antebellum, now known of course as Lady A, Pierce the Veil, LMFAO, The Glitch Mob, and Cage the Elephant. Bands that either broke up until, of course, their inevitable reunions or announced their hiatus included 3LW, Atomic Kitten, Biohazard, Bow Wow Wow, The Cardigans, Destiny's Child, Dishwalla, Fusebox, Cumbia Kings, NRG, Protocol, System of a Down, Black Sabbath, The Fugees, and Fear Factory. The Police reunited for the first time since their breakup in the mid-1980s. At least for a tour. Take That also reunited, but without Robbie Williams, who rejoined finally about a decade later or so. Famous artists who passed away in 2006 included James Brown on Christmas Day, no less, Billy Preston, Lou Rawls, Gene Pitney, Buck Owens, Bismillah Khan, Raj Kumar, rappers Jay Dilla and Proof, Gerald Levert, Wilson Pickett, Boz Burrell of King Crimson, Robert Lockwood Jr., June Pointer, the Pointer Sisters, reggae singer Desmond Decker, Clades Charles Smith of Kool and the Gang, Gene McFadden of McFadden and Whitehead, opera singer Robert McFerrin, singers Gloria Jones, Ruth Brown, Cindy Walker, Rocio Gerardo, and Rocio Durcal, no relation, Atlantic Records co-founder Ahmet Erdogan, Freddie Fender, Sandy West of the group The Runaways, Mark Spoon of Jammin' Spoon, and the legendary Syd Barrett of the group Pink Floyd. At award ceremonies for the music of 2006, the Dixie Chicks, now of course known as the Chicks, won Album, Record, and Song of the Year at the Grammy Awards, while Carrie Underwood won Best New Artist that year. Panic at the Disco won Video of the Year for the song I Write Sins, Not Tragedies at the MTV Video Music Awards. At the American Music Awards, Rascal Flatts won Artist of the Year. At the Billboard Music Awards, Chris Brown won Artist of the Year. Jennifer Hudson won Entertainer of the Year at the Soul Train Music Awards. Bon Jovi, Carrie Underwood, Shakira, Kenny Chesney, Chamillionaire, and Nickelback won the music categories at the People's Choice Awards. At the Eurovision Singing Contest, which was held that year in Athens, Greece, Lordi from Finland won for the song Hard Rock Hallelujah. Kenny Chesney won Entertainer of the Year at the Country Music Association Awards, and he also won Entertainer of the Year at the Academy of Country Music Awards. The Arctic Monkeys won Best British Album for Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not, and Take That won Best Song for Patience at the Brit Awards. Nelly Furtado won Best Album for Loose, while Nelly Furtado and Timbaland won Best Song for Promiscuous, and Nelly Furtado herself won Artist of the Year at the Juno Awards. Bernard Fanning won Album of the Year for Tea and Sympathy, and Eskimo Joe won Single of the Year for Black Fingernails Red Wine at the ARIA Music Awards. At the Tony Awards, Spring Awakening won Best Musical, and Company won Best Revival of a Musical. The Pulitzer Prize for Music was won by Yehudi Weiner for Piano Concerto Chiavi in Mano. Musically at the Academy Awards, Melissa Etheridge won Best Original Film Song for I Need to Wake Up from An Inconvenient Truth, and the score for the movie Babel won Best Original Film Score. The Arctic Monkeys won the Mercury Prize for the album Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not, and the first Canadian Polaris Prize was given to Final Fantasy for their album Hipu's Clouds, which is an awesome title for an album. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony took place on March 13th at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City. At the ceremony, as one would expect, the Sex Pistols, who were nominated, they didn't show up. Instead, they sent a letter where they insulted the hall by calling it, quote, a urine stain, end quote. Black Sabbath were there, but they didn't perform. Herb Alpert and Jerry Moss, who are the heads of A&M Records, were inducted into the Non-Performers Lifetime Achievement Award category. They are the last people to be inducted in that category. In the Performers category, the Hall inducted the Sex Pistols, whether they showed up or not, Leonard Skinner, Miles Davis, Blondie, and this next group. Formed in Birmingham, England in 1968, the group Black Sabbath is widely credited with pioneering heavy metal music. Their dark, brooding sound, which is characterized by distorted guitars, pounding drums, along with Ozzy Osbourne's powerful vocals, helped to revolutionize rock and roll. Black Sabbath's origins lie in the Birmingham blues scene. Guitarist Tony Iommi, bassist Geezer Butler, drummer Bill Ward, and vocalist Ozzy Osbourne were the original lineup, and that is the lineup that was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The group initially formed a blues band known as the Polka Tulk Blues Band, then shortened that name up to Polka Tulk, and then completely changed it to the band Earth for whatever reason. However, their musical taste began to shift towards a heavier, more ominous sound. Inspiration actually came from horror movies, dark fantasy novels, and the bleak industrial landscape of their own hometown of Birmingham. After their sound changed, they then changed their name to Black Sabbath, which was based on a 1963 horror movie of the same name. In 1969, Black Sabbath signed with Vertigo Records and released their self-titled debut album in 1970. The album marked a turning point in music. Iommi's signature heavy guitar riffs, often created with a prosthetic fingertip after an industrial accident, laid the foundation for the heavy metal genre. Butler's dark and socially conscious lyrics, influenced by horror and social issues, added another layer of depth to them. Ward's powerful drumming provided a relentless backbone, while Ozzy Osbourne's distinctive, raspy vocals delivered the band's message with their usual raw power. The album was a huge hit, reaching number 8 on the UK Albums Chart, number 23 on the Billboard 200 in the United States. Their second album, Paranoid, in 1970, solidified their success with hits like Iron Man, War Pigs, and the title track Paranoid. That album reached number 1 in the United Kingdom and number 12 in the United States. Subsequent albums such as Master of Reality in 1971, Volume 4 in 1972, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath in 1973, and Sabotage in 1975 continued to build on their heavy, doom-laden sound featuring complex arrangements and lyrical themes that touched on war, drugs, and the occult, further solidifying their dark and heavy type of music that they had created at that point. However, the band's relentless touring with 9 tours in 9 years and internal conflicts, of course, mainly due to Ozzy Osbourne's substance abuse issues, began to take a toll on the band overall. In 1979, Ozzy Osbourne was fired from the band due to his erratic behavior and substance abuse problems. Ozzy then went on, of course, to have an amazingly successful solo career, which finally got him into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist in 2024. Meanwhile, Ozzy was replaced by former Rainbow vocalist Ronnie James Dio. With Dio, Black Sabbath released the albums Heaven and Hell in 1980 and Mob Rules in 1981, both of which were very well received and marked a new era for the band. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Black Sabbath underwent numerous lineup changes with 28 members in total, including Ian Gillan as lead vocalist for a few years, with Tony Iommi being the only constant member through all of the lineup changes. The band experimented with different styles and sounds, but struggled to achieve the same level of success that they had enjoyed in the 1970s. In 1997, the original lineup of Black Sabbath reunited for a series of live performances and tours. This reunion eventually led to the recording of a new studio album, 13, which was released in 2013. The album was a critical and commercial success, reaching number 1 on the charts in several countries, including the United States and the United Kingdom. Black Sabbath embarked on their farewell tour, The End, in 2016, which concluded in February 2017 with a final performance in their hometown of Birmingham. There are currently rumors of doing a one-concert reunion as Ozzy's health is fading, and unfortunately fading kind of fast. We'll see what the future holds on that one. The band's legacy continues to influence the world of heavy metal, and their contributions to the genre are celebrated by fans and musicians alike. Black Sabbath's influence on rock music is undeniable. They are considered the fathers of heavy metal, inspiring a lot of bands through a lot of different subgenres. Seriously, if you're a band who has a dark sound, then you were definitely influenced by Black Sabbath. Their dark and heavy sound paved the way for thrash metal, doom metal, and black metal. Their innovations in guitar work, drumming, and songwriting continue to be studied by aspiring musicians to this day. Black Sabbath's impact extends beyond music. Their dark imagery and themes help to shape the aesthetics of heavy metal, influencing fashion, album artwork, and music videos. Their music continues to resonate with fans across generations, which is a testament to their enduring power and influence. Black Sabbath released 19 studio albums, 8 live albums, 3 EPs, and 13 compilation albums. Of those, 12 hit the top 40 in America, with 2 of those 12 going top 10, including their final album, 13, going to number 1. In their native UK, they were more popular, of course, with 23 top 40 albums, and 9 of those 23 going top 10, including their last album, 13, and their 1970 album, Paranoid, both going to number 1. Singles-wise, they released 37 of those, and out of those 37, only 6 hit the top 40 in America, with 2 of those 6 going top 10, and it was mainly the songs without Ozzy that were commercially popular in America. In the United Kingdom, 7 hit the top 40, with only the song Paranoid going top 10 at number 4. Most of the top 40 songs in the United Kingdom were with Ozzy as lead on that. In 2005, Black Sabbath was inducted into the United Kingdom Music Hall of Fame, and in 2006, they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Presented for induction by Lars Ulrich and James Hetfield of 2009 inductees Metallica, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, Bill Ward, and Ozzy Osbourne. Black Sabbath inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2006, and we have put a selection of their music onto this week's music playlist, the link to which is in the show notes. Before we go any further, we'd like to tell you that there is now a Music History In-Depth podcast where we go more in-depth on a few of the events that happened in music history for that particular week. The Music History In-Depth podcast drops every Tuesday on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast from, as does our Music History Today podcast, which goes over the daily events in music history. The Music History Today podcast drops daily, including weekends, on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, back to this podcast. We're continuing our look at artists who will be eligible for induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the very first time in 2025. This time, we're going across the pond to merry old London, England, to look at the collaboration between Damon Albarn of the group Blur and animated comic artist James Hewitt, better known as the virtual band Gorillaz. I will admit that this one actually kind of took me by surprise because I didn't realize it's been 25 years since their first album. Holy cow, time flies. With that said, to the tale of the tape we go. Gorillaz released 8 studio albums, 3 compilation albums, and 11 EPs. Of those, all of the studio albums have gone top 30 in America, with 5 of those going top 10. In the UK, all of their studio albums have gone top 15, with only 1 of those going outside the top 10, which was 2011's The Fall, which hit number 12. 2 of those studio albums hit number 1, 2005's Demon Days and their last album, which was 2023's Cracker Island. Gorillaz also released 46 singles. Of those, only 2005's Feel Good Incorporated hit the top 40 in America, peaking at number 14. In the UK, 9 hit the top 40, with 5 of those 9 going top 10, including 2005's Dare, which went to number 1. They've also sold 35 million albums worldwide. Critically, they're pretty much fully decorated, with 27 wins out of 80 nominations, including winning 1 Grammy Award, 1 Brit Award, 2 MTV Video Music Awards, and 4 MTV Europe Video Music Awards. As far as their influence goes, well, they married media and music. In the 1960s, of course, there were cartoon groups like the Archies who had hit songs, or groups like the Jackson 5 and the Osmonds who had their own Saturday morning cartoon shows. Gorillaz simply took the concept, mixed it with alternative and hip-hop, and turned it on its heads. Critically, they're treated along the lines of Radiohead, which is great, except that it took Radiohead forever to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I suspect it'll be the same way for Gorillaz. I think that they'll eventually get in, but probably not in their first year of eligibility in 2025. But To show you how great they are, we've of course put their music onto this week's podcast playlist. The link, as I said before, is in the show notes. Back in 1980, the Blues Foundation decided to start inducting blues artists into its foundation's Hall of Fame wing. Much like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they inducted members long before they had a physical building. That all changed when the Blues Hall of Fame Museum opened in 2015. The museum is located at 421 South Main Street in Memphis, Tennessee, and has become one of Memphis's biggest tourist attractions, getting over 100,000 visitors a year. It's located less than 2 blocks away from the National Civil Rights Museum, which is what used to be the Lorraine Motel. The Lorraine Motel is famous for being the place where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. The museum itself has 10 galleries, and as far as museums go these days, it's pretty updated with modern technology. There's interactive touchscreen displays and databases, unlike a lot of museums where their button displays never seem to work. We've all been to those museums. Its archives house over 5,000 artifacts, including instruments, sheet music, recordings, and photographs. Some of their exhibits have focused on blues music in Memphis and also in popular culture. The museum is open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Sundays from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Admission is $10 for adults and $8 for students, which is extremely cheap for a museum these days. Museum members and children 12 and under are free. blues.org/hall-of-fame-museum is its main website. And yes, we will throw that link in the show notes for you because writing all those dashes is a pain in the neck. Anyway, Rosetta Rubin was born on March 20th, 1915 in Cotton Plant, Arkansas to Katie Bell Rubin. At least that's the official story of her birth. Some researchers also think that her name was Rossither Atkins, and she was born to Katie Harper. Not much is known about her father except that he was a singer. What is definitely known is that Rosetta's mother was a singer who was also heavily involved in the church as a speaker and a preacher. She was also a feminist who encouraged women in the congregation to sing, but Rosetta's mother also taught the spiritual word in church, which was relatively unheard of in that era. Rosetta's mother had an impact on her daughter, both in attitude and in her career choice. It was her mother who introduced Rosetta to gospel music and also to the guitar at age 6. Rosetta became very proficient at playing the guitar and was, still at age 6, traveling and playing with her mother as part of a traveling ministry show. They toured the South for a few years until they moved to Chicago, Illinois. For the next decade, Rosetta and her mother toured the North, where Rosetta developed a reputation as a child prodigy. She also fell in love with, and at 19, married a preacher who toured with them. At that point, Rosetta took her new husband's last name, Thorpe, changed a vowel, and made it her stage name as we know her by today, Sister Rosetta Tharpe. At the age of 23, Rosetta started recording gospel songs for Decca Records. In fact, she recorded her first 4 gospel songs while being backed up by an orchestra. Those 4 songs, The Lonesome Road, My Man and I, Rock Me, and That's All, became big gospel hits and turned Rosetta into a sensation. The song Rock Me became a very influential song on future rock and roll artists like Elvis Presley and Little Richard. Her song Down by the Riverside was selected for preservation in the National Recording Registry of the United States Library of Congress. At the time, it was tough being a female guitarist, as they were pretty rare. It was even rarer when the female guitarist was black. What Rosetta did with her music, and one of the main reasons why she was finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, was that she started combining gospel, and secular and blues music, and also started playing with secular artists in places like the Cotton Club in New York City. That did not sit well with the gospel crowd, who started leaving her. She actually wanted to go back to mainly gospel music in 1943, but she was obligated by her contract to play more secular things at that time. Rosetta teamed up with Marie Knight and recorded a bunch of duets and went on to tour with Marie. By the end of the 1940s, though, the partnership started to break up due to other artists like Mahalia Jackson gaining more popularity. Rosetta still kept touring and recording, even touring over in Europe until her death from a stroke on October 9, 1973. Sister Rosetta Tharpe recorded 9 albums in her lifetime with Decca, Mercury, MGM, Promenade, Verve, and Savoy Records. While she has a bunch of both gospel and secular and blues songs that she's known for, 4 of her secular songs officially made it onto the American R&B charts. 1945's Strange Things Happening Every Day went to number 2. 1948's Precious Memories and Up Above My Head, I Hear Music in the Air both went to number 13 and number 6 respectively. And 1949's Christmas classic Silent Night went to number 6. Rosetta's influence on rock and roll is immeasurable. She influenced pretty much all of the early rock and roll artists, especially during a concert in Manchester, England on May 7th, 1964, that was said to have influenced Eric Clapton, Keith Richards, and Jeff Beck. Her use of heavy distortion in her guitar kick-started electric blues. She was nicknamed the godmother of rock and roll. Also, she set the bar for female guitarists with the tenacity and determination that she inherited from her mother. The godmother of rock and roll, gospel, blues, and early rock and roll great Sister Rosetta Tharpe, inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame in Memphis, Tennessee, and we have put a selection of her music onto this week's podcast playlist, the link to which is in the show notes. The Music Halls of Fame podcast is part of the Music History Today network, which can be found under Music History Today on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcast from, and also on our YouTube page under Music History Today. Thank you very much for listening.